Up next, the city's proposed urban growth boundary is being reviewed by the state. Here's an update on how that process is going.
In 2005, the city adopted an updated population forecast, and through that we found that we were well short of what we should have for a 20-year land supply for our future growth. So we began a long, intensive, complex process to determine how much land we would need for the next 20 years, and then justify the amount of land that we thought we would need.
The city chose a larger urban growth boundary expansion over a smaller one because it had been over 28 years since we last grew our city limits, and we were bringing in both residential lands and economic lands for future businesses.
Well, the council had directed us to look at erring on the high side when looking at our UGB expansion, in particular with our land need estimates. We'd gone through a pretty rapid period of growth. They were concerned that we not underestimate or shortchange ourselves so that we have 20-year supplies of land for both housing and employment.
Oregon state law requires us to have an urban growth boundary and to have a supply of lands outside of that to move into, so to speak.
Well, the City Council adopted our expanded urban growth boundary last January. State law requires that we now submit that to the state of Oregon, to the Department of Land Conservation and Development for review and approval. We expect to hear back from the Department of Land Conservation and Development by the end of December, and that will tell us whether the expansion will stand as it is or whether it might be necessary to go back and make some adjustments.
The state's role in our urban growth boundary process is to review what we've proposed and then let us know if they agree with our proposal, whether it meets the state law and the intentions of those laws.
Well, the urban growth boundary itself only makes land eligible for annexation and development as part of the city. It doesn't bring any additional land into the city for development at all.
And we've also got some very strong policies in the general plan that try to get at developing complete neighborhoods so that we've got a mix of uses, we've got shopping close to neighborhoods, employment close to neighborhoods, and also schools and parks in those areas as well.
So we can control how we grow in terms of annexations, when they're needed, and how we'll provide services to them, and the kinds of uses that will be allowed on those areas.
And so we have a number of mechanisms in place to ensure that things can happen in a way that benefits the city.
If the state doesn't agree with our proposal and does send it back, then the council will have to decide what issues are important to fight for and where we can find agreement with the state, or where we may have to plead our case.
So once we hear back from the state, once we know how they're responding to what we've done, we'll have a clearer idea whether we need to make adjustments to Ben's urban growth boundary or whether it's approved as submitted.
The critical importance of this is thinking ahead now so we can be proactive with making sure we've got adequate land for housing, schools, parks, neighborhood services, and employment, not just for the population now, but for the population that will be here.
I've been involved with the urban growth boundary expansion both as a planning commissioner and as a city councilor. And I can tell you this current city council really would like to see the urban growth boundary expansion completed sooner than later. So we'll be working hard for our citizens to get this done.